wherever you're watching us from. It's another time with the enthusiastic tutor. Just quickly share the link. Okay, the link has been shared to the class. Um, so we just go on while we wait for them to join. Just have to switch this a bit. Okay. Oh, it's Justina. Okay, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining in tonight. You're very punctual today. You came in before Mr. Jolas. Okay, just quickly put my phone. Let me put my phone on silent. Oh, Mr. Edward, thank you for joining us. Okay, Miss Brown, this is up. And Miss Brown, this are you the person we chatted just now? Oh, Mr. Jolas, you came in a bit late today. We have three persons who had joined the class before you tonight, but all the same, it's good to have us here again tonight. So let's just go straight into it. So the TMAs are shutting down. I mean, closing down. We are starting the TMAs very soon, and everybody is clamoring. You know, the usual thing with TMA. I mean, everybody is just like TMA is starting this, that. But just like as I said yesterday, TMA will surely come and go. What I what I myself is very particular about is the exam, which is the 70. You know, your TMA is just 30%, and your exam is 70%. I've even seen cases whereby some persons didn't do TMA and they did well in the exam and they passed. So TMA is just more like something to cushion you, just to support you and ensure you come out with good grades. They're actually very important as well, but not as important as the exam. You don't even necessarily have to go through all your material before you attempt your TMA. You understand? But you can't do that with your exam. So that being said, let's just go straight directly into today's class. So yesterday we spoke about how genetics and how genetics can influence our behavior as human, the influences of genetics and environment. Okay, Miss Blessing, it's good to have you tonight. Thank you for joining us. So we have behavior genetics influences and environmental influence. And yesterday we spoke at length about how the genetics of both the mother and father having predominant effect on the child. Tonight won't be we won't take much. I won't take much of our time tonight because there has not been light almost all day, and my system is on 49%. I'm not sure that can take us for long, so I won't go into details about things, but I'll try to cover all things so that we can understand. So we spoke about genetics influence on behavior, and we made an example of if it happens that the person's parents, a child's parents, are thieves, that the chances of the child stealing as well is high because the genetics of the parent is predominant in the influence on the child's behavior. And we also spoke about the environment too, that majority of us are the product of our environment. And we give an example of a child who is exposed and a child who is not exposed. And yesterday we spoke about monozygotes and we spoke about the zygotes. These are emerging cells in twins, identical twins, and we spoke about all this yesterday. And we spoke about the determinant of editorial subjects, okay, which we said something about Sana. So once a baby is born, the vast majority of influence comes from the environment. That's our Sana's argument that if a baby like a woman is pregnant of a child and the woman smokes, the chances of the child also smoking as influenced by the environment is high. So we spoke about that yesterday, and there was an assignment given. Just one person has actually submitted our assignment, although I'm yet to review the assignments. So today, with all this being said, today we're talking about applying psychology in policing. Policing, I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised seeing policing under psychology because, okay, we are about seven of us watching this live stream, and we have just two persons who has liked the video. The stream, please, if you are yet to like the stream, do well to smash the like button. So, Abraham Joseph, okay, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, I'm not surprised having policing, under psychology. Definitely, psychology in policing is very important, although psychology cannot be substituted for policing or for the interpretation of the law, but psychology is very important in policing. All this we'll discuss at length tonight. Yesterday we spoke just like the previous, just the immediate retrospective unit, we discussed about human beings and behavior genetics and environmental influences. We also said something yesterday about nature and nurture. And I remember giving the illustration of no matter how much you feed a lizard with the food of a crocodile, the nature of the lizard is a lizard. No matter how you feed it, oh, five persons has liked the video, awesome. So what are the remaining three people doing? You guys want to like the video or what? So as I was saying, the nature of a lizard, no matter how much you feed it, no matter how much you change its environment, no matter how much what you have done to that lizard, the lizard might not be able to transform into an alligator, into a crocodile, because it's not its nature. So we said something about nature and nurture, and we said something about one of the late term we use in classifying or explaining nature and nurture yesterday was nature is something biological, something natural, but nurture is something more of artificial, something we build, something we make up and bring into existence. Okay, we have 6% now. 6% has liked the live stream. Thank you guys for doing that. So we have, what is policing itself? So you can take this point down. Policing can be defined as a process of ensuring the safety and implementing of law and order in the society. Policing can be said to be the process of ensuring safety of the citizen and the interpretation of law and implementing the interpretation and implementation of law and order in society. I don't know if we have that, if I've written that. The word, if an officer is charged with the responsibility, a policeman is charged with the responsibility of, they are under the constitution. I mean, we have them as the judiciary, which they serve as people who interpret the law. Now, an officer now is the one that enforces the law, meaning that they carry out the law on the street. Like in a social setting, they are responsible with carrying out the law. So somebody has liked the video and clicked on it again and disliked. I think the moment you liked it once, you don't click on it twice because it will reflect as you disliked it. So have we do we have that written down? The definition of policing, or should I take it again? Excuse me, it's quite odd here. Are we there? Mr. Jolas, Ms. Justina, Mr. Joseph, Mr. Abdul Salam, are we okay with the definition? And are we on the same page? Here it's page it's one. I don't know. Are we all on the same page? Miss Pricky is not yet this night. I think she said she was doing something that she might be joining late. Mr. Jolas, Mr. Peter, Mr. Abdul Salam. Who again am I not remembering? Do we have the definition of policing written down? Okay, Mr. Joseph said I should take it again. Okay, policing can be defined as the process. Hard copy is page 62. Okay, for as many of us using hard copy, it's page 62. But here on my soft copy is page 81. So, Mr. Edward says I should. He said yes, sir. I think I think he said it's with us. So, policing is the process of ensuring the implementation. Policing is a process of ensuring okay, I'm here, Mr. Okay, patient Uko. Is that pre-key? Okay, okay, yes, awesome. It's great to have you. So, policing is a process of ensuring the implementation of law and order in the society. It can also be referred to as ensuring the safetyness of citizens in the society. Implementation of law and order, ensuring the implementation of law and order in the society. So, one of the areas which psychology can be applied is policing, which is very true. A great deal of policing involves interacting with others, which you can agree with me to some extent that the police officers they do a lot of interaction. They investigate matters, they go on search, they go, please sir, what causes this? Oh, I think you are just joining us for the first time. This is Introduction to Psychology, and this is the course we have been taking for over 9 days now. This is the 10th class, and we are in Module 2, Unit 3. I think it's just few units to complete Module 2, and we enter into the last module, which is the Module 3. I think today is um, Thursday. I think by Sunday we should have been done with the course, and by next week we'll be starting with another course. Okay, Mr. Abdul Salam said, Mr. Abdullahi Seller said yes. Okay, so I was supposed to release a tutorial today, but it took me hours of editing the video. That's the video of MTH 105, the continuation of logic and conceptual logic. The last class I stopped at giving examples on say the basics, which is actually the simple and composite statements. So this forthcoming class on MTH 105, I spoke more on the in-depth of composite statements and arguments, and how you can express them using connectives like and, which is actually called disjoints, and which is actually called disjunction. That's the or, represents or, disjunction, which is or, and the other one called and, which is conjunction. So by tonight or tomorrow, the tutorial should be uploaded. It's actually converting. I've finished editing it, but it's a tutorial it's a class of 1 hour, so it will take time to convert. So as I was saying, policing involves interacting with others, be the citizens in distress, the witnesses, colleagues, suspect, or whatever. Psychology can be of great benefit in helping police officers understanding human behavior and so deal with others in more effective way. Now let's not forget, just like the definition of this one accepted definition we have all agreed about psychology, which is the systematic studying, the scientific studying. We say anything systematic is scientific. The systematic studying, all this we've established in our retrospective class, in our retrospective classes, and we've been able to establish that psychology is a scientific study of human behavior, how humans behave in its natural environment. So and we've spoken about the approaches, we've spoken about the method, we've spoken about the branches, and we've reviewed a lot of definitions by psychologists. And so definitely, as an officer of the law, psychology is a great deal in helping police in becoming a better officer and doing their job well. Now, police psychologists may, for example, offer on offer advice on the selection of the most able candidates for promotion. Now they are highlighting why it is necessary that police officers should employ the use of psychology. Now, for a officer who is a psychologist, even as a police officer, you know, psychologists, we don't see things as a psychologist, you don't see things the way normal people see things. Why? Because you think critically. Okay, so what Miss that's Pricky, what unit are we are? We are in unit I think this is unit 4. Yeah, applying psychology to policing. Mr. Jola said it's page 62 on hard copy. If you are using the hard copy, it's page 62, but if you are using the soft copy, here is page 80. So I believe you are there already. So as a psychologist, you don't see things on the superficial level because you want to know why. Just like one explanation we give there, I think it's a psychodynamic approach whereby a child in the classroom wants to get attention, then the child may start to misbehave. So in this case, a psychologist was introduced to study this child, and the psychologist they figured out that the child behave in this way whenever the child is in the classroom, because if the child acts calm and normal, then the child will not gain attention from the teacher. But if the child begins to act stubborn and unruly, then it gets that attention. So in order to solve that problem, in order not for the child to behave stubborn and unruly, the attention which he seeks during that process should not be given to him, and that will solve that problem. So that is how, now for a layman will see this boy as being unnecessary and stubborn, but the psychologist will definitely not see things from that angle. So you can imagine bringing this knowledge and this level of intelligence as a psychologist into the workforce of the police. So it's a very great deal of advancement, and it's a very great deal of advancement and importance. So it says here that police psychologists may, for example, offer advice on the selection of the most able candidates for promotion, help counsel those who have been traumatized, just like what we say, traumatized in the sense that if you want to talk to somebody who is traumatized, definitely it has to either be influence of the emotion or influence from the environment. And we said something a lot about psychologists looking how studying how environment influences our behavior a lot. So as a psychologist, you are at that upper hand to talking to somebody who is probably traumatized by particular incidents and so on. Now, they will also be able to help with a number of witnesses, with a number of practical policing tasks, including hostage negotiation. Hostage negotiation simply means that, in cases, I don't know, Probably many of us used to watch all these American movies where bandits or bad guys will keep citizens hostage and they will demand for ransom. One of the movies I watched whereby some citizens of the United States were actually captured, and those guys were from Afghanistan, and they are trying to demand for ransom. And the head of naval officers in their control room there made it clear that they don't negotiate with terrorists. And they actually did one or two things. They were able to get their hostages out. So as a psychologist, because of your wide array of reasoning, your wide level of reasoning and intelligent thinking, we said something about the MA and the CA. If the level of your MA in our previous class, we said something about the MA. If your level of MA is high, as a psychologist, your level of MA is definitely supposed to be high because you are well read and you are well exposed as a psychologist. Before you can talk, you can get to that stage of being a psychologist, you are definitely well read and you are well exposed, and your MA is definitely high. So you now coming into the work to the police force, definitely you are at advantage because things like hostage negotiation will not be a problem for you because you are looking at things from a systematic way. You are not just condemning the you're not condemning the terrorists that they are bad at this. No, you're looking at what is the influence on these people. Why are they doing this? What is the influence? What they want to get? What they want to gain from doing this? You look at things, you critically observe things. Observations is very important. So hostage negotiation, you intervene of witnesses and suspects. The way you even interact, the way you speak, the way you investigate and talk to witnesses and suspects, it's actually going to be different because now you're speaking from the point of a psychologist. Now, it is important for you to note that even where police forces do not employ psychologists directly, there are many areas of applied psychology that will be of great benefit to officers within the service. So we have our self-assessment one, which says describe how you will persuade police officers to in your state of origin that psychologists can offer valuable help and understanding. This is all we have been saying. So if you as a person if you are charged with the responsibility of talking to maybe a superior somebody of high caliber in your state, why you should introduce psychologists, the help of psychologists in the police force. I believe with all these things we've said, you should be able to say a thing or two. Now, having read this unit, it should be apparent that psychology can, excuse me, can extremely can be extremely useful when applied to the area of policing. Certainly. Now, remember that psychology can never be substituted. I said this earlier on. No matter how important it is, the law is the law. Psychology is only there to aid the law. You cannot you can take this point down, please. No matter how important psychology seems, you cannot substitute for knowledge of the law. Psychology cannot be substituted for the knowledge of the law. Psychology cannot be substituted for the knowledge of the law. That's the key word. Now we have, according to what we have in the material, we have powers of arrest and so on and so forth. It's basically it revolves about the law that cannot be substituted. Now, but it can add to another knowledge and hopefully improve individuals, officers' effective and efficient functioning within the society, which we establish, as we said, that adding the value of a psychologist to yourself as a as a police officer, you definitely at advantage and you will be better off definitely. So we have psychology consultant. Who is a consultant? A consultant is a professional that renders advice professional advice on a particular profession or field to an individual or to an organization. That is who a consultant is. I don't know if we have taken that down. If we have taken that down, then I believe I can move on. Or should I take that again? Mr. Jolas, Mr. Sela, I'm not sure Mr. Peter is us, Mr. Joseph, Justina, Pricky, do we have that taken down? Can we move on? Psychological consultant. So most psychology who work with law enforcement agencies act as consultants. Definitely. Most psychologists who work with law enforcement agencies act as a consultant. Okay, Pricky said I should come again. Okay, now a consultant. Okay, Mr. Joseph said we are together. Awesome. So now a consultant is an individual who offers professional services. An individual who offers professional services in a particular field to an individual. Okay, now professional services or advice. Professional services or advice to an individual or an organization. They are very specialized and they are very professional. Okay, Ms. Justina said I should take it again. Okay, now a consultant is an individual who, now I'm trying to remember the words I use again because every time I repeat it I keep changing word. Who specializes. An individual who, okay, now an individual who offers professional advice and services. A consultant is an individual who renders or offers professional services and advice in a particular field. There's a specialization, and the specialization has to be in a particular field. And these services or this professional advice can be rendered to either an individual or an organization. So in a nutshell, a consultant is an individual who offers professional services and advice to professional services and advice in a field. Let's not forget, in a field to individuals or organizations. So now we have psychological consultants. Now with the definition you've just gotten, now we're now going to put it down and make reference to that of the psychologists. Excuse me. So now, most psychologists who work with law enforcement agencies act as consultants. Definitely, because psychologists now they are coming from the field of being a psychologist. And let's not forget we have different type of psychologists. We have a lot of them. Different field and specialization even as psychologists. So now we're now saying a psychologist who is working in the police force as a consultant, you understand, renders special advices to cushion the effort of the force. Now, the degree to which a consultant can be effective in police work depends a great deal on who the consultant serves and whom the consultant reports. Now, that is a big deal. It's actually a big deal. Now, you can imagine if the consultant is serving a low cadre officer, okay, if um if the officer is serving a low cadre officer, I mean if the psychologist is serving a low cadre officer, I'm giving an illustration now of two psychologists now serving a one-star general, another one is serving a two-star general. I'm just giving an illustration. Now, the psychologist who is rendering advices, let's not forget, whatsoever professional services is rendering is to improve the work of the police force. Whatever advice, whatsoever anything is doing is to improve the work of the police force. So now, you can imagine if he gives reasonable advices and consultation to this one-star general, and this one-star general forwards it to the top for approval. But unfortunately, maybe the two-star general is a bit biased or is not so cool or could not see beyond his nose and turn down the approval of these improvements that the psychologist has opined, has proposed. You can imagine in a case that the effort of the psychologist has been jeopardized. But if the psychologist is attending to a high cadre officer, whereby as he's saying it, they are implementing it, then his efforts will be visible. Just like what they've said here, they said the degree to which a consultant can be effective in police work depends a great deal on who the consultant serves and to whom the consultant reports. I believe we get that clearly enough. Now, it is important for you to note that every consultant can expect a good deal of initial caution, definitely, and hostility on the part of the people they work with. Definitely, because now let me just explain this in a lay term. Yeah, let me simplify it. Now, a good deal of initial caution. You don't expect everybody to like you as a psychologist because they feel you behave like you know too much. And let's not forget about what we said the other time about IQ. When your MA is high, you cannot hide it because the way you talk, the way you compose yourself, the way you address people, the way you manage situations will be different. Let me quickly tell us this. Age does not have anything to do with your MA. You can be 40 and a child of 20 is smarter and intelligent than you are. So definitely as a psychologist, you should definitely expect what? It says here, okay, what is it again? Initial cautions and hostility. Hostility in the sense that unfair behaviors, hostile behaviors. Maybe will just totally do something to you and you'll be like, what kind of hostile behavior is this? Very unfair behavior towards you is something expectant. So you can take this point down. It is important to note that every consultant should expect initial caution and hostility on the part of their job. Do we have that taken down? So now it is said then that suspicion and distrust may accompany the stereotypes on both sides of the interface. We are all still saying the same thing. Remember that openness, nevertheless, even among all this, it is still expected of you to be open and sensitive. See, these two words are actually very contradicting, but you have to use them wisely. When you are being open, it's about calling white white, calling a spade a spade. And even at this, the degree to your openness, you have to be sensitive about it, because there might be a situation whereby you need to be open on the case, but because you can sense the danger behind you being open on that particular case, then you might need to pipe down. That has to do with sensitivity, observing the behavior. I mean, as a psychologist, you can't tend to flop because you don't see things the way normal people see things. You see things from the point of a scientific lens. You see things from point of scientific lens. So my phone wants to. Let me just try and. I don't know what my phone is kind of overeating. Trying to just told me now that I might be shutting down. I don't want it to shut down. So I believe we've taken that down. Remember, please let's take this point down. Remember that openness and sensitivity are required. As a psychologist, remember dash and dash are required. As a psychologist, dash and dash are required. Openness and sensitivity. Or can I put it this way? Dash qualities are expected of a psychologist. Just two: openness and sensitivity, and that's all. So we have that as that. Now, an attitude of humility and willingness to listen is also helpful. As a psychologist, an attitude of humility and willingness to listen is also helpful. Now, psychologists working as a consultant must be willing to accept, tolerate the slowness of change commonly found in bureaucratic institutions. Very true. Just like what I said earlier on about a psychologist working for a low cadre officer and a psychologist working for a higher cadre officer, that the level at which processes to getting approvals, they will be different. So as a psychologist, you should be ready to get along with that. That's what it's saying. So now, Raising and Kelver 1987 says it's important attribute for consultants to be patient. We said something about qualities, openness and what? Sensitivity. Now somebody is now saying here that attributes, the important attribute of a psychologist is patience. So that's that as that. Now we have let's just move on. We have advantages and disadvantages of a psychologist serving as a consultant. So now, what is the advantage? We have autonomy and distance can be maintained. Very true. Autonomy in the sense that you are independent. As a psychologist, one of the advantages is that you are independent. There is somewhat less bureaucratic influence in a psychologist's job. Yes, definitely. Because as a psychologist, you think abstractly and you have the right and you have the freedom to think something through, then present it for approval. So you are definitely not influenced by whatever it is that is there to be influenced by. Now, there is a minimizing of dual relationship problem. Dual relationship problem. It is easier to maintain confidentiality. Very true, because you won't be getting much influence from whatever it is that is coming from. There are fewer pressure for psychologists to be all things to all people. Definitely not. You can't be all things to all people as a psychologist. The psychologist has the opportunity to serve other agencies very well. You're an independent worker, so your time and everything is being determined by you. It allows for the introduction of broader application and newer psychological techniques. So we have this advantage. A distance or barrier between psychologists and the staff tends to exist because the law enforcement officers from a closed society, okay, because of the independency and autonomous kind of behavior from a psychologist, the relationship with other staffs might not be very cordial. The range of service is generally capped, capped at the narrowest level for fiscal and administrative reason. Now, the range of services, God, this is serious. The range of services is generally capped at the narrowest level, meaning that informations are not usually disclosed. Psychologists don't give information out, especially when it has to do with fiscal and administrative stuff. Now, psychologists rarely get complete feedback on the service they provide. Definitely. There is less opportunity for research. Okay, less opportunity for research. Although as a psychologist you experiment, doesn't mean you don't really research. The psychologist is viewed as an outsider and in some instance does not get full story. Okay, meaning that the vibe that psychology might get from the environment. We said something about hostile behavior from co-workers in the organization where the consultant is working. So that's the disadvantage of it. It's viewed as an outsider. So we have the in-house staff psychology. Now, psychologist who is a staff member in a law enforcement agency has certain advantages, and as a member of the establishment, there is a readily, excuse me, access to confidential personal information. Psychologist requires credibility and confidence as a member of the. Now, we're not talking about the psychology. The one we spoke about before is definitely not a member of the organization, but now we're talking about the in-house psychology. Salary is predictable. There are health retirement benefits. There's a sense of identification. Definitely, you are accepted into the company because they feel you are now one of them. The psychologists learn the unspoken and written rules that are practiced. Wow, unspoken and unwritten rules. Definitely, he gets to learn because now that everybody is free with him, he gets to relate to them and he gets to find out things by himself. It is easier to initiate new kinds of service by first exploring them informally. Because of the information and the interaction between them, he tends to implement some things on his own because of he has that free hand. Psychology is able to develop a network that helps in dealing with conflict and opportunities. It's not that you relate to them, you can help resolve conflict. Now, psychologist is a staff. Now, I think disadvantages. The psychologist is a staff member subject to the bureaucratic stress. Exactly. Now, excuse me, the same bureaucratic issues the regular staff has, you also will have it as a psychologist, as an in-house psychologist, unlike the other one I spoke about that has autonomy and can always carry out things independently. Now, the staff member may be overwhelmed with requests and depend on service for far beyond realistic capacity. And because of this relationship and communication with the psychologist, with the in-house psychologist and the staffs now, definitely they'll influence his kind of work. They'll begin to demand, as a psychology, your responsibility is to develop new policies and things that definitely can improve the workforce. So the demand on him based on the relationship from other personnel will mount and he might not be able to deliver. Now, continuous stresses and pressure occur as the psychologists deal with expectations and demand of staff members that may be involved serious ethical dilemma. That's just what I've just said, and that is that for that. Conclusion: in this unit, you have learned what policing involves. You have therefore learned that the psychologist may be a consultant in police organization. We also learned the advantages and disadvantages of psychologist who is a staff member in a law enforcement agency. Now, what you have learned in this unit concerns what policing involve. In cases this will involve psychologists working within organization, but in others it may involve psychologist theories and principles being incorporated into the training of police officers. Okay, now we have that as that, and we have our tutored mark assignment. List any four groups of citizens with whom the police interacts. State one specific instance in which psychology may be used to the police. State one specific instance in which psychology, I mean, we've mentioned a lot actually. Mention two advantages and disadvantages of psychology as a consultant. I think all these things we've said. I think, but the list any four groups of citizens. You know, I remember we said something about witnesses. Is a group of citizens. Witnesses, interrogations. These are people they are interrogating. Witnesses, they are alleged. I mean, they are arraigned. These are groups of citizens that they can definitely interact with. So we have that as that. So unit 5, which is perception. I think we'll be stopping here for tonight, so that because my not sure this my battery will take us throughout this to this unit 5, because here I'm having just it can shut down any moment from now. So in our tomorrow's class we'll be taking unit 5, which is perception, a basic problem. I think in less than 2 days we should be running off this course, and we will be taking off for the next course. So thank you everyone. This brings us to the end of today's class. I'm quite sorry about the fact that we didn't stay long tonight, just about 46 minutes. Usually we do up to 1 hour, but today just 46 minutes. Actually, there has not been power source. I mean, and my system is shutting down in a few minutes, and I don't want the system to shut down on the class. So I think we are good for tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see us tomorrow in tomorrow's class. The retrospective assignment given, please let's attend to it, and let's keep studying and keep grinding. Good night, and see you in the next class. Bye.